Everybody to the August technical committee meeting. I hope everyone enjoyed a month off break. Last one for a little while. Let's begin with a roll call and start over here by the Doug.
Chipke Triangle West. Aaron Kane, Durham City County Planning.
Travis Creighton, Research Triangle Foundation.
Conchita, Chatham County.
Sarah Williamson, Orange County.
Colleen McHugh, Triangle West.
Eric Vitale, City of Durham.
Ellen Beckman, Durham County.
Curtis Carpignano, Durham County.
Jennifer Brooks.
Then Rottweiler, Thomas Chapel.
Oh, elected time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Stephanie Truba, Town of Hillsborough.
UHG, Raleigh Durham Airport Authority.
Julie Bogle, NCDOT.
Matt Day, Central Pines Regional Council.
David Rucker, Children's Campus Preschool.
Tasha Johnson, City of Durham.
Bill Judge, City of Durham.
Lindsay Smart, City of Durham.
Caroline Lamb, Durham County.
Monet Moore, Triangle West.
Satyan, Triangle West.
Tom Porter, Triangle West.
Madeline Galliano, Triangle West.
David Miller, Triangle West.
Yim John.
Jennifer McCuskey, PC Division 7. Samad Ramanwala.
Wonderful. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
There are not.
That leads us to public comments. I know we have one in attendance. Do we have a on there? Welcome to another one.
Well, I don't have anything prepared to talk about now. I just wanted to hear what was said about the technical things related.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
Yes.
All right, with
No
that,
public comment?
that being said, no public comment. On the consent agenda, there are two items, the June 6, 2025 TC minutes and a letter of support for Central Durham BRT. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, looking for a motion to approve.
So move Paul Black, a triangle.
Moved by Paul,
Second, Chatham County.
second by Tony. All in favor?
Right.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. That leads us to our first action item. The 2025 update to the ADA transition plan, Monet.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Monet Moore. I am a principal planner with the Triangle West TPO, and today I will be presenting on our 2025 update to the ADA transition plan. So this is just an overview or a table of contents in regards to our process and what we'll be reviewing today as it relates to the ADA transition plan. So we're going to step through a couple of things, starting with the background, the ADA focus group that we hosted, the understanding and framework of the ADA transition plan, the evaluation of the different things that goes into an ADA transition plan, some opportunities for improvement across the region, and then some findings and next steps. So a little bit of background, just dating back to 1973, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act requires that basically we cannot discriminate on the grounds of disabilities for any programs that receive federal funding. So that is also inclusive of NPOs. The second thing that we have here on this timeline is the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. We're subject to Title II. Those regulations prohibit any sort of discrimination in regards to disabilities for state and local government services. And then last on this timeline, we have the adoption of the 2017 ADA transition plan when we were under the name of the Durham Chapel Hill Carborough MPO. And so we had that plan in partnership with the City of Durham. So before we started to update this plan, we kind of decided to take a new approach and just follow some different guidelines. And so what we decided to do is that we hosted an ADA focus group. So as a part of that ADA focus group, we partnered with a local agency called the Triangle Disability Awareness Council that is based out of Orange County. We hosted a focus group that had about 12 participants of different disabilities or abilities. It was a full day focus group. It had an in-person option and a hybrid option. So folks could attend either. And then we had about 12 participants with varying abilities and varying ages. And so the goal of this focus group, I've outlined some of the key goals here, but really was to identify accessibility issues within the triangle or the western part of the triangle, identify ways that the TPO and partners can be successful in ensuring accessibility, and then also set goals for improving access to transportation and the TPO planning processes. So on our left here, we have the responsibilities that's set out by the Federal Highway Administration in regards to what a ADA transition plan should include. And then we also outlined what our key goals are for our organization as a NPO, which includes assist our local governments, which are you all, in meeting the requirements set forth by the Federal Highway Administration regarding ADA transition plans, increase and improve accessibility to people with disabilities within the TPO boundaries, and then provide guidance relating to ADA policies and procedures where feasible. And so our goals are recognizing that we are not necessarily always required to have an ADA transition plan as an NPO, but also recognizing that we still want to take a step in regards to making sure our region is accessible to all and being an agency that you all can rely on for support in your own goals as it relates to accessibility. So as a part of that, we evaluated these three things, including our policies and procedures, our programs and facilities, and then also our communication methods. So as a part of our policies and procedures, in the draft yield plan, what you'll see is that we've identified some of the ADA coordinators that we work with here in the western part of the triangle in order to make sure that we have a clear line of communication and to where if we're receiving any sort of feedback here in the triangle, we have ways to report that back out to your organizations. We also have ways to partner with your organizations in regards to improvements. And then another thing that you'll see within the policies and procedures section is our complaint and grievance procedures. This is basically a carryover from that previous plan. However, we have updated ways in regards to complaints that can be filed with us, the ways that we're willing to receive them. So making sure that we are just kind of keeping up with times and we're using technology that is most accessible for people who have different abilities. So in addition to that, we also took a look at our programs and facilities, starting off with the office that we're sitting in here at the Central Pines Regional Office, where we host a lot of our meetings, including our technical committee meetings, our board meetings, ensuring that this space is accessible for all. We also took a look at how we host our public meetings, what materials that we can be providing in different ways. So procuring ASL translators whenever they're requested, also being able to have a brailler on staff or on contract to where if we do need to translate or interpret some of the documents, such as our meeting agendas, things of that nature. We also provided a general guidelines for our TPO events. And so staff has a list of accessible meeting spaces across the triangle area to where if we are hosting open houses, public meetings off-site, then we're able to do that in an accessible way. A review of the programs that we fund through 5310. And then we also did a comprehensive review of our transit planning programs and then pedestrian planning programs that are happening across the members' jurisdictions. So in addition to that, we also took a look at our communication methods for in-person, written, website, and social media. So again, that looks like how we're communicating outward. Are we providing alternative formats such as large font formats? Are we able to provide Braille if requested? Are we able to provide ASL translators or interpreters when needed? And then also drafting some internal policies in regards to written documents, how they're available on our website, and then making sure that our website is compliant with WCAG 2.1 standards, which are the most recent standards for accessibilities for government agencies and websites. So some of I would say the most important parts of the draft document that you receive is going to be the opportunities for improvements. And these are some of the key things that we heard when we hosted the focus group in regards to like, what are some of the biggest challenges people have when trying to get across the region? And some of those key takeaways, especially as it relates to transit, is really wanting and desiring a more regional approach, really wanting and desiring a more multimodal approach. And so we have transit related opportunities for improvement relating to service and performance, and then also relating to facilities. And generally speaking, these are things that we've all kind of heard before in regards to as it relates to facilities, wanting more seated bus stops, wanting more shaded areas, and then also some very specific things relating to paratransit, extended hours of service, just a little bit more education for our operators. And so the full list is within the document, but we did include some of those key things that kind of was reoccurring during that focus group. And then another large area that we heard for a lot of improvements related to pedestrian related items or areas that we could be improving on relating to sidewalks and curb ramps are often safer and missing. There weren't any specific areas that were identified in the focus group, but really just to highlight in regards to where, generally speaking, solutions were provided in regards to how we could be making improvements across the region. And then also some things in regards to more audible signage, especially at intersections. So some intersection improvements. We've heard some things in regards to micromobility, blocking sidewalks and pedestrian pathways. And so there are some general recommendations in regards to opportunities for improvement that could make, again, our area a lot more accessible. And then lastly, in this document, we close out with a general finding and next steps. This is a format that everyone should kind of be familiar with. This is the same format that we use for our Safe Streets for All document, but really just listing out some general recommendations, a description in regards to what that recommendation entails, and then some of the responsible agencies and who we would like to be partnering with as we kind of approach accessibility going into this next phase of our ADA transition plan. And then we also assigned a time frame in regards to what we feel like could be appropriate in the ways that we achieve it or when we achieve them. And so today we are not finalizing this document. We really just want to release it to public comment. We want to receive comments from you all as our members' jurisdictions, but we also want to receive publics from the comment. And so this is just a recommended action. It will go before the board on August 26th towards the end of this month. And then we'll be able to collect feedback, edit the document, and bring it back to you all in regards to taking action for adoption. And then with that, I will take any questions.
Any questions? Anybody? Oh, looking for a motion then to recommend for release for public comment. Moved by Ellen,
Second, Chairman County.
second by Tom, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Monet. Next item. 2025 update to the language access plan. Tia,
Lucia is going to be presenting unlock.
okay.
Lucia, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, can everyone see the first slide?
Not yet.
Okay, give me one
Now we
second. Okay, how about now?
Yes. Looks good.
Perfect. All right, well, thank you everyone for being here today. My name is Lucia Ciro and I am an intern at Triangle West, and I have worked extensively on the language access plan this summer, and so I'm excited to share more information about it today. And so the first thing I wanted to share was just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So it's a quick outline of what's going to be covered in the presentation today, which is going to start with some background, and then it's going to get more into like the content of the language access plan, and then finalizing with some of the kind of like key outcomes, main takeaways, and then the schedule for adoption of the plan. And so starting with some background, so what is limited English proficiency? This is a definition that actually comes from the federal government, and someone who is considered limited English proficiency is a person who self-reports their command of English to be anything less than very well. Implied in this definition is that they speak English as a second language. And previously, the TPO had adopted a limited English proficiency plan back in 2021. And this was back when we were the DCHC MPO. And the only language addressed in this plan was Spanish. And so that's some of the background. There's also a broader legal framework around limited English proficiency plans or language access plans, starting with the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which establishes Title VI, and Title VI requires all people to have fair access to participation in planning processes. And then a little bit later, we have Executive Order 13166, which is from the year 2000 and requires it kind of establishes the need for limited English proficiency plans. And so the guidance from the Department of Justice in 2002 and this executive order from 2000 are intended to make sure that agencies receiving federal funding are engaging with communities that may have different levels of proficiency in English. And then part of the DOJ guidance as well establishes a four-factor analysis, which we have in our language access plan, and I will go over a little bit later in the presentation. And so after this period from 2000 to 2002, limited English proficiency plans were being adopted across the country. And then recently, like this calendar year, we have Executive Order 14224, and this designates English as the official language of the US. And then shortly after that, there was a rescission of DOJ LEP guidance. And so, just to quickly go over why we moved from limited English proficiency plans to the language access plan. Part of this was motivated by wanting to stay in line with the work of our partner jurisdictions. So right now, Town of Chapel Hill, Town of Carrboro, City of Durham, and Chatham County all have language access plans. And so wanting to make sure that we're staying aligned with our partners. And then another part of the switch was thinking about like shifting the focus. So instead of focusing on what people may or may not have, thinking about like a focus on bridging communication gaps. And then within that, and thinking about language access, we also wanted to make sure that we were thinking a little bit more expansively about anyone who might need additional supports in communication. And so with that, there is a little bit of overlap with some of the stuff that we talk about in the language access plan and groups that would be covered by the ADA transition plan as well. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later on in the presentation. And so this is the cover page of two of the language access plans from some of our partners. So on the left is the Town of Chapel Hills, which was adopted in 2019. And on the right, it's the Town of Carrboro, which was adopted in 2024. And these do a really good job demonstrating that like the Triangle West region is a very dynamic and growing region. And so kind of just really exemplifying how like the policies that we have need to be aware of and reflect this kind of like dynamic growing region. And so, as I mentioned a little bit before, part of the language access plan is expanding like language access. So moving beyond spoken languages and thinking about like people who might need access to Braille text or people who might use American Sign Language for communication. We also wanted to focus on plain language. So the language access plan is drafted in plain language. And this actually ties into our public participation plan, where plain language is encouraged to promote clarity in our public communications. And so we also try to make sure that this language access plan is kind of like in conversation with our ADA transition plan and our public participation plan so that everything kind of like ties together. And then finally, we wanted to make sure that we were considering cultural competency. So not just thinking about language differences, but maybe cultural differences and making sure that our staff is prepared to maybe like address and manage those as well. And so this slide and the next slide are going to cover that four-factor analysis that I mentioned in the background section. And so the first factor is just like the population of LEP people. And so according to the ACS data, we have about 20,000 Spanish LEP people in our region, and then around 3,000 Chinese LEP people in the TPO's boundaries. And the next factor is the frequency with which the TPO interacts with them. And so in an internal survey with our staff signaled that the use of I Speak cards would be beneficial. And so I'll talk a little bit more about I Speak cards towards the end of the presentation. But essentially, it's just a way to kind of like gauge if there's a lot of need for language assistance at community engagement events. And I just wanted to quickly highlight before moving on to the next slide that the American Community Survey data does have significant margins of error. However, the results of our data analysis are in line with the language needs that our staff reported from their experience and work within the community. And so the next two factors are the importance of services. So obviously it's a transportation planning organization. And so just trying to like highlight that transportation is foundational to our communities and impacts everyone. And so making sure that we have a lot of public input is crucial to avoiding unforeseen negative impacts. And then the last factor, factor 4, is resources available and overall cost. So we decided to focus on summaries of vital documents and making sure that those are translated into our languages of highest need, and making sure that we're utilizing a mix of staff and professional interpretation and translation. So thinking about kind of like using all of the resources at our disposal as best we can. And so the languages that are covered by the language access plan is actually a threshold, is based on a threshold set by the federal government as well. So it was set by USDOT. USDOT created the safe harbor threshold, which I quoted part of that here. And this explains what safe harbor is. And essentially it pretty much boils down to like the US Department of Transportation sets these two different potential thresholds for which populations would be covered and protected by safe harbor, and as an extension by limited English proficiency plans. And so, and then this threshold was set back in the early 2000s when the limited English proficiency plans were being created. And so the thresholds are 5% of the total population or 1,000 people, whichever is less. And that is like the threshold at which groups would become protected by safe harbor and by limited English proficiency plans. And so for the Triangle West region, this would be Chinese, which the US Census Bureau includes Mandarin and Cantonese within that group, as well as Spanish. And so these are just a visualization of our data analysis, which was done in R using the census data. And as I mentioned earlier, the American Community Survey data does use pretty large margins of error, which are exemplified here by the orange lines. And so we also wanted to note here that part of why the margins of error look so significant is because the American Community Survey automatically calculates a 19% margin of error for any census tract where the population estimate is 0. And so that does kind of broadly expand the margins of error a decent amount. But the results of Spanish and Chinese being covered by safe harbor requirements does align with the work of some of our partner jurisdictions, because Town of Carrboro finds that they have more of a need for Spanish language assistance, and Town of Chapel Hill finds that they have more of a need for Mandarin and other API languages or assistance with those languages. And so, and then finally, kind of moving towards wrapping up, these are some of the key outcomes for the language access plan. So the first thing being some additional trainings for staff. So in basic communication, just kind of trying to facilitate some really simple interactions and using this as a way to build trust. We also, as I mentioned earlier, thinking about building cultural awareness and competency. And so, for example, ASL is considered people's first language, and it has its own grammar, syntax, and history. And so making sure that staff is aware and like prepared for those interactions. And then finally, with the plain language and visual aids, so making sure that we are promoting that clarity in public communications and making sure that we're using our public communications to kind of continually build trust. And then the next section is translation and interpretation. So as I mentioned earlier, having summaries available of our vital documents in those languages of high need, which are Chinese and Spanish, and then also potentially Braille. And then having staff proofread and revise machine translations where possible. So thinking about like again, utilizing all the resources at our disposal, but trying to make sure that we're using them effectively. And then the last thing was partnering with community organizations. So when we're trying to do outreach with these communities, maybe thinking about like, are there organizations already working with these communities that we could partner with and work with in order to facilitate that outreach and continue building trust. And so finally, these are the I Speak cards that I mentioned earlier in the presentation, and they're really meant to be a way for people to either request language access or for people to share the languages that they feel comfortable communicating in. And it's also helpful for staff to kind of get a sense of like, is there a need for like more language assistance, less language assistance for which languages? And so it's really kind of meant to just kind of facilitate those interactions. And then finally, this is just a quick schedule, so this is just a presentation of the language access plan and the draft of it. The next, it's also going to get presented to the board, and then there will be a public comment period. And then in the future, it will obviously need to be adopted. And so this is just kind of an overview of that. And that is all I have, but I am open for questions or comments. Thank you guys for listening.
Quick comment. I think the safe harbor actually dates back to HUD, and then DOT just adopted the HUD standard. So if that's in the document, you might double check that. And if I'm wrong, circle back and let me know so that I know for the future.
We can definitely look into that and double check that.
I also find it interesting that no South Asian language is triggered. I know on the Campo side, when I did their plan many years ago, that we actually had to translate to Gujarati. It's one of our safe harbor threshold languages. Interesting.
Any other questions? Hearing none, this is also making a recommendation to the board to release for public comment. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Paul Black, Go Triangle.
Moved by Paul,
Second.
seconded by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
The next item, didn't see Earl from Kimberly Horn in the room, so is anybody online from Kimberly Horn or the applicant to represent and talk about this item? No, hearing none, I guess Bill said he's gonna get up and answer any
Yeah.
questions.
Monet or Billman, I know you have received 7 or 8 comments, maybe.
About 7 public comments on the item.
On the item, and I think they're been sort of mixed. I think there's definitely some confusion. The additional notification, I think, did help, but they have resulted in some additional confusion among the James Ross Road impacted property owners, not fully understanding that nothing would be imminent if this were to get revised to follow James Ross Road as Kimberly Horn requested. I believe owner of the daycare is here as well. I spoke with him a few days ago, but so I don't know that I have a particular recommendation based on the mixed for the board. I think it's up to the TC to ultimately provide a recommendation to the board. I believe the 3 options would be to basically recommend denial, to leave the CTP the way it is, sort of shown on this alignment here. I think the second option would be to recommend the amendment be approved, which was as requested by Kinley Horn, which would shift the alignment up to James Ross Road. And then potentially, I think Colleen or Doug, did you confirm that? I guess they could make a recommendation to the board to basically just use the existing alignment of James Ross Road. I don't know that that would actually, I guess it would just be taking the dashed line sort of off and drawing it more as a solid line on the
I think
CTP.
the recommendation was to just remove the project from the CTP altogether and not do anything in the future at this.
Well, I think we would still want the bike ped improvements that are called for in the CTP for Massey Chapel. I don't think we'd want to completely eliminate it. The minor thoroughfare or whatever it's classified as.
I guess remove any
Yeah.
new roadway.
Yeah, it would just be removing the new alignment, following the existing alignment of the offset intersections.
That, I mean, that's what we'd like to propose as the primary option.
Did that have any complications for the signalization of those like signals could be?
It does. I think that's the big concern. I know John Sandor is not here from the, he was primarily the one for long-term viability that wanted the alignment look north through James Ross. After the board meeting, when some of these questions about why couldn't you just use the existing offset come up, I had recommended to Earl that he go back and look at it, but I think that would be the danger, I guess, in going to utilizing existing alignment is whether or not DOT would concur in adopting the revised CTP. Would they have concern with that intersection offset only 300 feet apart?
Yeah, so that would be also an amendment to CTP.
Yeah.
If we're gonna change what's by removing the,
By removing it from this parcel that it's shown.
right,
We take it back out the public comment, then a third option to, we leave the alignment as is and see what results and bring it back after the public comment period.
is that what the city is recommending?
Yeah,
I mean, I think we would want, we would be okay with that, given the potential impacts. I think if or when James Ross redevelops, I think it's still highly likely that there would be a road and connection there, whether it's part of the CTP or not. I don't know that we need the CTP to ultimately make that happen. That would be, I guess, most consistent. I don't think anybody from a public project standpoint is likely to build that alignment given the environmental impacts. I don't see the city doing that anytime soon. I guess I should also say James Ross Road is currently in the county actually, so it would require water sewer annexation, redevelopment of that to make that happen. So that I don't know that that's likely to happen anytime in the near future.
Plus like the expense of building the road, right, everything like so. That makes those properties pretty expensive to develop those properties.
Correct. And I don't see it scoring through SPOT as a state funded division level project to realign this anytime soon.
it's not currently in
Right,
NTP either, right?
It's not. That's
So I don't see it getting in the NTP anytime soon either.
You might like,
Yeah,
just point
sure.
out. So I was asked by my opinion on, so I'm the owner of the daycare here. And so I was asked kind of my opinion if what I thought about this, and so I kind of had to say, well, like we don't have enough information because this right now blocks our entire driveway right now, where the two red lines are positioned here. And so like what would be the alternative? Like we weren't really like given that sort of information. So this would certainly with the way it is, our comment would be that we wouldn't want this to happen. And we're also owners of this lot here. So we would be pretty impacted no matter which kind of direction this road took through here. Do the engineers like have, or like, what would the town's plan Does anybody have any idea kind of what the plan would be if our entire entryway and parking lot were to be impacted here?
I mean, so. If this development were to proceed, they would likely only be required to build it to their property line, so we would still end up with that gap still there unless they could work out an agreement with you as the adjacent property owner to go ahead and make that connection. Assuming that they did go ahead and continue to make that connection, I mean, they would have to rework the driveway. I would guess that access to the parking lot would probably come somewhere towards the rear property further from Fayetteville to basically improve that spacing, but I don't know if that's been designed at this point.
Yeah, the project's currently just in the CTP and it's unfunded, so I don't think that level of detail's been thought through yet
Yeah.
at this point in time.
So keeping it as is, probably just the least objections, but maybe we want to know what NCDOT.
I think it would be helpful to know whether or not NCDOT, and I don't think they've had an opportunity to even consider that, but so I doubt they're prepared to, anyone's in the room prepared to answer that today, but I think that would be something we'd want to know whether or not DOT sees a concern with amending it to follow the existing alignment.
Should we give them a chance to weigh in before we make a recommendation?
I mean, seeing as the applicant's not even here,
So just maybe delay it a month.
might be worth it
Yeah.
tabling.
Tabling.
We bring this back next month, next agenda.
That is the desire of the committee.
Well, Eric, you mentioned additional public comment.
Yeah, do you think that would be worthwhile?
That I'm assuming that the city would have that answer, and if you do want us to go out for another opportunity for comment, I would think we would appreciate it. The city provided the language that we send out.
It would require an additional 45 days. Another 45 days. Because now we're talking about a
But the
2-month
different-
delay rather than a 1-month delay.
I don't think. I think it could go either way, depending on what the feeling of the city was. If it's,
Doesn't seem like something that necessarily needs to be expedited, so I don't see what the harm in would be. Since it's such long-term recommendation.
I don't know, Aaron, if you know how anxious they are to submit an application on that property.
I've heard nothing from them, and we don't have an application in for that site at this time. So.
That would be the most time sensitive
Right,
portion of it.
and even if we did get something tomorrow, they're looking at least 6 to 8 months before they're in front of planning commission, so.
And I think this third option would be the most favorable among all parties, probably.
I mean, I personally am fine with just getting an answer from NCDOT and not putting it out for public comment. But if y'all want to put it out for public comment again, that I don't have any objection to.
Yeah, let's see, let's get some NCDOT feedback and then determine whether we need to go out to public comment or not. Let's do that.
but then we're gonna. Okay, we're looking at 3 months. That is the case.
Why are we looking at the previous?
Because we,
CTP time horizon is what, like 50 to 100 years?
yeah, Paul, it's not the CGP matters, it's that the city's incorporated into the ordinance. I mean, at this point, and I'll go back to this, would it just be easier for the applicant to apply to the BZA the way they're required? Citing practical difficulty.
I mean, perhaps, but I mean, I think as Aaron indicated, they still need to submit an application, go through their 6 to 8 months before they would even get zoning on the property, nevertheless.
Even if you're
site
looking,
plan.
yeah, even if you're looking at 3 months, they'll have an answer from this body prior to getting to our planning commission.
Something else that would be useful to inform us, I think, would be what are the traffic projections looking like? And at least in the MTP, this is what, a 25-year time horizon?
And that was in the
That's in
original
the original.
information that Earl from Finley Horn provided. But he didn't look at it in this configuration. He only looked at it in the James Ross configuration.
Yeah, and those were more like turning movements. I'm thinking further zoomed out. I know that we have the water supply watershed to the south, and so we don't anticipate a lot of growth.
Yeah.
And that could impact whether or not it's moving the signal. And
Yeah, there
two
was-
pieces matters or not.
There's not as much east-west traffic across Fayetteville as at least as I was anticipating prior to them looking at it. 2050, I don't remember if he looked at like the 2050 or if he looked at projected 2055, but he used the original model.
Projected.
I don't know whether
Traffic would not meet Warren. Like what, with the projected side streets, Minor Street or side street traffic meet Warren for signal?
it does because it does today, but it's primarily based on side street delay.
So not the,
Yeah,
not the
it's,
main.
it's left turns from Massey Chapel on to Fayetteville, not necessarily through movement.
It's a signal issue on Fayetteville. I mean, I know they're close, but what's,
I think it's just a coordination issue because the volumes are heavier, particularly the less, I'm guessing probably more the northbound. So I think the question is, you know, from signal direction, they turn left, they hit the red there, do they start to queue up into the Massey signal?
So let's table the item for now. We'll check in with DOT after the meeting and then determine if we need to go back out to public comment before bringing this back to TC for a new recommendation.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Bill.
So will the city be coordinating with DOT or would you like us to coordinate?
If we can sort of jointly, I guess, yeah, I'm not real sure. That's a good question, whether is that John at the district office, or does that need to go through Julie and, yeah, the group that's reviewing CTP amendments, I guess?
maybe both of us.
Alright. Thank you. Now, do we make the motion?
I think we need a motion.
It would be a motion to postpone.
Yeah, looking for a motion to postpone this particular one.
So moved.
Moved by Aaron,
Second.
second by Paul, all in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item, 2055 MPP preferred scenario, should that be on page?
Thank you. In 2055, MTP preferred option. This is schedule. People work, so I found the preferred option. And the next step will get me to the adoption of the MTP and the air quality contaminant. That's a step before the preferred scenario. Just recall we did alternative analysis 3 scenarios back in April. So this is review of the scenario we have done. First one is deficiency and needs, or we call it existing past committed scenario. So the committed project, generally we look forward 4 years forward with sure that there's a fund there for the project. And based on this committed project and existing condition, we do a 2055 model run and get a result. That's a phase scenario for 2055 MPP. The following 3 scenarios are plan and train and share leadership and altogether this alternative analysis scenarios. So if I make it a very simple simplification, is make the simplifications of the three scenario. The plan and trend scenario is focused on the highway project development. And shared leadership is a kind of balanced transit and highway plan scenario. Altogether, assume we get additional fund for transit and bike and path transportation mode. And it's definitely a transit focused scenario. So creation of the preferred scenario. So first, after we've done this alternative analysis, we did a deep review of the three scenarios and for some key project, how it performs in the result. And from this scenario, we create a draft preferred scenario. After we have this draft preferred scenario, we present to TC back in June. And we set up meeting with stakeholders. We receive comments and suggestions for the preferred scenario. So based on the comments and suggestions we received, we revising and finalize the preferred options and then make model run. So the first slide is about preferred options is a roadway. So actually it's a roadway path technology RTS project. Roadway project. So generally we have 2050 MTP. We did some minor removal and changes. In general, for example, the project is already built. We will take away from 2050 MTP list, and it's not in our make sure it's not in our preferred scenario because it's built. The examples are Eastern End Connector in Durham is built. So we take it away from the project list. And the example in Champlain is a South Elliott Road extension to the Memphis Church Road. So we take it away because it is built. So in generally, we are not removing a project from 2050 MTP unless it is built, unless there is request from member agency. For example, the 15501 in Chatham County. Previously, we had a modernization and signal synchronized project for that corridor in Chatham County. Per request, we're taking it away. The other type of project, like the I-40 I mentioned here, modernization removal is not a real removal, it's a modification of the project. We remove this project and set up another project. So for example, here, I-40 modernization is removed, we set up the RTS, we think the RTS project is more appropriate than the modernization here because originally it's ramp meter modernizations doing the modifications for the I-40 corridor. So right now we have the RTS project, including a ramp meter and dynamic shoulders. That's in the 2055 MTP list. The new project, the most work is refine the project, adding the new project. The new corridor project is US 70 East. It's kind of change. It's a boulevard conversion past a parallelized collector road. So in the 2050 MTP is only boulevard conversions, and we will have a second phase of US 70 study start very soon. US 70 West, the study already done, so it's widen and the multimodal improvement. So we get it into the MTP, the preferred list. I-85 widen is a new project. The reason we consider this project is all the I-85 corridors in the TPO area is a 6-lane freeway, except these portions. So we add this in, if you have comment, let us know. So the next part is a transit advantage project. So we add this HOV managed land project for the Dorm Freeway NC 147 IAA 5 from Breakers Avenue in Durham all the way south to the I-40, adding HOV lines, which can run the bus and especially we can run the BRT on it. So you can use the highway budget to help to make the transit advantage project on one side. On the other side, also it promote share riding. It's one of the goals of the MTP to do that. So this is first project for HOV line. Second one, based on the comments and suggestions, we also set up these HOV lines for I-40, starting from Orange County, from the Durham County, Wake County borderline, I-540, all the way to the west to the 5501 interchange. But this project is very high cost project. For example, only from the I-85 to the I-540 cost over $1 billion to build it. So we don't have very precisely estimate of the highway project. Based on the 10 years ago estimation for this section, it's $0.9 million of adding managed lines. So we apply inflation factors and get it is over $1 billion, very, very high cost project. For transit, this time we get this intercity passenger rail into the MTP, and we plan 3 stations. One station, Dorm, it already exists. The other 2 new stations will be RTP station and Hillsborough stations. And we assume these 2 stations will build through the federal grant. So it's not part of MTP budget, but we will set up a transit center together with the railway station. And for the new transit center, the center's cost will be into the MTP plan. So 3 stations with transit center for intercity rail. For the BRT, because we will ask about have a project list, whether it's in the 2050 MTP or it's new project or what project is removed from there yesterday, but we haven't got a chance to make that table ready. We will get that table before the board meeting. Back to the topic. So all this BRT line exists in the 2050 MTP, except the Central Dorm BRT line is new added. For the Dorm Orange BRT line, we did extensions from TPO to the harbor, which has changed to the previous MTP. That gives you an idea what we made change, what change we made for the this time. For the bus line, we have a map. We send it out. You can take a look. It's generally based on the short-range plan, county transit plan, plus the new lines we added. Some of the projects are from the county transit plan unfunded project. So I can give a couple of examples for Champ Hill. We have the wide course to the UNC Express bus service. We have S Drive bus line, new added. We have a Gateway CN lines north of Champ Hill set up for with regard to the BRT lines, north-south BRT line and the Dorm on BRT lines. So for the Dorm part, we have a bus service from Dorm downtown to the Butler, and we have we removed 700 after we set up the BRT. And we have 710 bus lines from RTP to the village. We also have the BRT, the bus lines on the MLK parkways, and south of Dorm, we have a new Go Dorm 18 there. So that's part of examples for the bus line setup, new one. Bike and ped, generally we don't do project level recommendations for the MTP. We will get all the plans from local jurisdiction, from the city, from the town, plans get into the document as a project list there. And also we have generally rough projections of every decade, how many miles we will build for the sidewalk, for shared use cars, and for the protect lands and bike lines as well. So that's a general, based on this assumption, we can get budget estimations for bike and ped and get that one into the MTP financial plans. So these are result. These are input data from the preferred scenario, and these are socioeconomic data. And there's no big change with what I have shown this one in the previous meeting. For other scenarios, here is for Chatham County in the past. We take the whole county estimate population jobs in this table. But this time we only take the modeled area for Chatham County into this table for the population job number. So in general, Durham and Chatham County is fast growth. Orange also very fast, but compared with Durham and Chatham, it's relatively lower. And the other features for this area is the job growth is outpace the population demographic growth. That's a number showing there. So when the job growth is 85%, while the population growth is only 50%. These are transportation supply input table. And the first table showing the supply input. Second table shows three key performance measures system-wide or TPO level measures. So the lane miles is for freeway and area and above separately. Or prefer, compare with the base scenario, existing past committed scenario. So the freeway has 10% increase and area and above is about 48% increased. For the transit service hours, go triangle that including Lake County as well, total 182% increased. And Champion Transit, Go Durham, and other, it's about, add up together, it's about 34% increase. So all this lead to the result in the second table. So you can see the VMT almost no increased compared with this scenario. 0.26% increased, while the VHT is decreased. That means delay is decreased. 4% decrease of VHT. It's very big change. And for the passenger mile travel, the people on the bus, how many miles you travel is 157% increase. Big increase on this. So that's overall result. So increase the roadway investment, you get relatively high VMT and lower VHT. So people may travel longer, but the congestion is lower compared with this scenario. So increased transit service miles, you get a high passenger travel miles. So that's a logical. result. So first, from the system level to the second levels is a corridor level. We have top 10 corridor level based travel time index. Make it easy to quick to pick up. We set up interpolations of travel time index as extra time required, percent of extra time. So if you have a free for travel time, no congestion, almost no traffic, you have a travel time as a base. The X travel time is compared with the base free for travel times. So on the base scenario, the highest is you need 84% extra time travel on the US 70. That's highest one number. The lowest is NC 98. It's 34%. So after we have this investment on the roadway, on the transit, on the bike and ped, and in the preferred scenario, it's the highest time required is 51. That's on the US 5501. And you can see the US 70 is down from 84 to 50% time. And in generally, we see 50% is a trigger. 50% is okay. It's above 50% extra time required. We need some treatment or improvement for the corridor. So the second one is I-85 south, that's in Orange County, north of Orange County. So from 71 to 22% extra time, big decrease after widening. The third one is I-40 east from 57 down to 34% extra time required for travel on the I-40 east in Durham County. So this is a detail level. I just show it overall to give you an idea. This detail for each roadway segment. When it shows a red, it's congested. That means volume over capacity ratio over 1. And the yellow means some congestion there. It's a VC ratio, volume over capacity from 0.8 to under the 1 ratios. So the left-hand side map shows base scenario result. The right one shows preferred result. You can see the number of links of the area with yellow and red decrease in the right on the right maps in the preferred scenario. So similar, we do ratio over seat capacity maps for the transit. So the category are a little different. This is transit maps. So the triggers a little different. Usually we use 1.5 when the passenger volume in the car on the car over seat capacity over 1.5. We see it's congested in the car. What that means? That means every 2 seats you have 1 person stand in the bus on the bus. From 1.0 to 1.5, we said some congested on the bus. So you can see here, the example here I can show in the base scenario, you can see Durham Freeway and NC55 are in red, some portions. But after we have BRT, we add more service there, and then these two are getting better. So Durham Freeway still show yellow, but NC55 looks better. So this I preferred option. The investment is a preliminary estimate for this cost for all this project and transit service. That's very preliminary estimate. When we do the final MTP, we'll fix the project by decade. We have a preliminary project by decades. But when getting into the MTP, final MTP, we will fix that decade, but each decade, what project in that decade, fall in that decade. That may result these numbers a little changes. So right now, the roadway cost is about 6.2 billion. It's just because the I-40 we added at very late stage. It increased this one to 6.2 billion dollars in 2026 dollars. Transit right now is 5.5. We are still maybe get a little bit lower. Bike and ped is roughly about 3 billion. Current estimation is lower than 3 billion. Is about 2.7, 2.8, but we get 3 there as a rough estimation of the cost estimate. That's overall for 3 decades together. And the maintenance and operation last time is 6 billion. We roughly giving 7 billion dollars for the maintenance and operation. So the total together is 21, almost 22 billion. While we have the cost estimate from CPRC, it shows overall it's about 23 billion dollars. So the revenue will be 23. So right now the cost is about 22 billion or the preferred. This is all together. We haven't fixed all the project by decade. After fixed by decade may change this number a little bit. So that's current estimations. So that's all the presentation. So I'm ready to answer the question you have.
I have a question about your last slide. So the preferred option cost. What assumptions are in there in terms of where the money comes from? Is it?
Yeah, so
Question.
this first I have had.
Key question.
There's a lot of assumptions. So it is mostly built off of sort of STI existing pots. So taking DOT's current forecasts and taking them out to the future. There is also an assumption about federal funding. I believe what we've got in there right now is sort of a trend line looking at past. Federal funding tends to be lumpy. You know, they'll pass a new law and then you get an increase and then you're flat for a while and then it goes up. So we kind of did that as a trend line based on past to try to get a future estimate. It also has the transit tax revenue stuff in there. We got that from Go Triangle. So that's just based off of their forecasting spreadsheets. I'm sure there's other stuff in there I'm forgetting, but that's the big stuff.
So it doesn't also.
And sales tax increase.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Oh, yes, so.
Sales tax.
So
Right.
a 1 cent actually is, yes, that's a 1 cent.
Not half, I saw half.
It's
1 cent
It's 1 cent.
total. 1 cent increase or 1 cent total?
1 cent increase is what's defaulted in there. So if you
Okay.
don't want that, you need to change that.
Thank you.
And is that 1 cent increase for any mode or is it specific to transit or anything?
That is an MPO level decision.
It's for any mode on the campus side.
Okay.
The political support there is to address the division roads.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, does the money work out for it to be any mode or does the money only work out for it to be transit? In terms of like what's shown on the screen, like where's the 5.5 billion come from? Is that the half cent plus the cent?
Yeah, this is
Inclusive for
this is 5.5 is over the transit. The budget for the transit. So but there's NC first division there. So that makes it a little different to the county transit plan. So we get additional one from the NC first.
Yeah, so
Division one, and make that to shift to the transit and bike and ped. That's a detailed things we haven't fixed that right now, but That's different to the 2020 plan. We can get, so last time in the board meeting, they are asking about to have more budget, start after 5 years to more investment on the transit. So we can get the NC first commission and into the transit to get BRT built early.
And to be clear, the way it is set up, the NC first commission assumption assumes you're growing the STI pie. Whereas the assumption about the 1 cent tax equivalent, whatever source that and to be clear, that doesn't have to be a sales tax. It could be coming from whatever, but we use sales tax to come up with the number. That is something that would be more of a local decision about how that actually gets used, because that's not going through STI.
Okay, well, it's probably also a general assembly.
Yeah.
Because we need authorizing legislation.
And I will say, Campo discussed this a lot at their TC meeting last week, and the way they are looking at it is apparently Charlotte just very recently did get General Assembly approval to do something like this. So I think the way they're approaching it is this is a reasonable assumption for us to be starting to think about if we want to think about it. But yes, it would require.
Yeah, no, that's what I have in mind, and I know Camp was thinking about that, and so. And I'm sure some of our elected officials would be very interested.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to know that answer, particularly as it relates to transit and roadway, because that permission of the General Assembly for Mecklenburg came with the agreement that I think it was 40% of it be spent on roadway widening. If we don't have 40% of that already in the roadway widening, then yeah, that may be an obstacle for this fiscal.
And for what it's worth, the way Campo is looking at that 1 cent sales tax right now, they're looking at roughly, I think it's a quarter to transit, a quarter to bike ped, a quarter to maintenance and operations, and a quarter to roadway.
I mean, let's not be bound 100% by what the legislature authorized for Charlotte. Because that just happened and it hasn't even passed referendum yet. You know, this financial plan is highly speculative anyway. It's really high level general analysis. It's not down to, I mean, it's likely that the federal government will appropriate less than the IIJA allocations over the next couple of years. So even just going off the past couple of years federal projections, we may actually fall short of that, for example. So I think when I spoke with FHWA about this issue following our previous board meeting, they seemed to say there was a reasonableness test that they couldn't define. But they suggested that they would know an excessive estimate when they saw it. So, you know, I think as long as we're somewhere in there and we reason through it, we'll be okay when it's reviewed for compliance.
I noticed that Danziger Drive extension is still in the model. I'm not sure if we made the official request to remove that.
You have not.
Okay.
Would you like to make that request?
I think so, yeah.
Well, should we wait until that development like pulled permits and stuff? Right now it's just been entitled, right?
Yeah. Would you recommend keeping it on there?
I'd wait in this climate. You never know when a development might hit a stumbling block that they didn't foresee.
So would that eliminate the crossing of I-40 into Durham?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Danziger one, yeah.
What is the reason for removing it? I guess.
The town council approved a development that would
Not preserve the right of way.
yeah, dedicate the right of way needed
constructed. That was against the staff recommendation.
Yeah, I just say that's unfortunate because we were trying to give alternatives to 5501.
Like what?
40 interchange.
We know.
More connectivity is usually a benefit. Right away on the Durham side.
Yep.
Yes.
Just as an observation, I'm recalling some of our last conversations with the board, or rather their conversations about the MTP. And members expressing a real interest in pushing bike ped versus roadway projects. And I'm wondering if there might be a way to modify the table to add number of in some way to help it visually looking like we're getting more bike ped than just roadway. I'm just looking at the cost there and just wondering if you might get some reaction.
Because bike ped projects are less expensive, so looking at the number of projects.
Yeah, it just might.
For that amount.
You talked about that earlier, but I'm just wondering, because people will have their conversation looking at this slide.
Or the summary table.
If there may be some benefit of trying to do that. And also, I just want to make as a comment, I'm really pleased to see something about maintenance in there because it seems like we tend to forget about that and it's a big deal.
One question, I just wanted some clarification. So I think early on this slide, actually, you had said something about there was previously a project on 15501 in Chatham County that you removed. And I just want to understand what's happening there because I'm pretty sure on the RPO side, they have a spot project there.
Chatham County, this is not good. Moment. So after the county borderlands, this is county borderland,
Yeah.
Orange County, Chatham County South, all around this land and all the way south to the TPO borderland, there was a project, MTP project. It's called a modernization. Actually, it's a synchronization of the intersection signal.
And my understanding, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is at least on the RPO side, that's a existing spot carryover project. Like, unless you're saying you absolutely don't want that project, I just don't know why you'd remove it from the MTP.
In the meeting together, I think Division 8 said it's done, so they will not do anything. So I asked twice whether you want to go for the spot process in next round. They said no.
I mean, I think it's an automatic carryover, so it's in there unless somebody takes it out, but
yeah, it is an automatic carryover. This is Brian from Division 8. The project that we questioned was on Jack Bennett.
Yeah, this project still keep modernization. This road is there. It's 5501 was removed.
So we want, Brian, are you suggesting the Jack Bennett project should be removed and the 15501 project included?
The 15501 project is a carryover, so yes, it would likely be on there, but Jack Bennett, unless the TPO is going to submit that as a project in the future, then you can leave it on there.
So we keep pool is at safe side, we still want protecting. Which one,
Thank you for clarifying, Brian.
Thank you.
Good catch.
Any other questions? The
The action is we're
Yeah.
seeking to release for public comment for a 45-day public comment period.
looking for recommendation for release for public comment.
Or 45, please.
42.
It should be 45. It was just a
It's
typo.
minimum 42 days, but it's 45 days.
So move, Paul Black, go train.
Thank you, Paul. Move, that's Paul, looking for a second.
Second.
Second by Curtis, on favor.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you, Yang. Next item is Belmont 2026-2035 tip adoption and air quality conformity. The last action item.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Klaudsen, and I'll be talking about that FY 2026 step and also the air quality information with it. Thank you. Exponential air quality TDR. So it's a report just that demonstrates that emissions in the future will not exceed certain thresholds. It's needed whenever there is an amendment to the MTP or when a new NIP is adopted. And so that's the case for this scenario. Going into the STIP, so the STIP is a 10-year document that just holds all planned transportation projects. The ones in the first 5 are known as delivery phase, and second 5 is the developmental STIP. So FHWA and FPA requires that we submit to them every 4 years, but NCDOT actually does it every 2 years. That is the stage that we're at right now. The NC Board of Transportation did adopt the STIP in July, and so right now it's currently under review of FHWA. Though we anticipate that approval in October, November-ish. So the MTIP that we will be recommending the board approve today is a subset of the STIP. So the first 4 years must match between those 2 documents. Going into the engagement period for this, so it was released on public input along with the spot materials. We did not receive any comments directly for our air quality report. Though we did receive some feedback from FHWA on this projects that are either exempt or non-exempt, and we're anticipating additional comments from EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. Comment received from the MTIP, just expressed difficulty with MTIP, something I feel like we can all relate with. Good feedback just for summarizing our future materials. So what's in here that wasn't in there when this was released for public comment is all the financials that came about with the STIP adoption. So the STIP is now financially constrained, and within there, chapter 3 are the future projections as well. And so in addition to the engagement period, there will be a public hearing at the August board meeting, and then that is when they will ultimately adopt our MTIP. Before we get into that, I just wanted to go over amending the TIP with you guys. So here is our schedule for upcoming amendment schedule. One thing you notice is that we removed the call for amendments period. We will be accepting the amendments on a rolling basis. So with this first one, it may seem like a tight turnaround, but following this for the rest of our amendments, we'll be able to submit amendments anytime during the period, and we'll compile them before we go for public comment. I'll be sending an email out to you guys this week, just with reiterating information and also sharing the submission form that you'll be using to submit these. Yeah, so that's it for the presentation. Go ahead, Nish.
Just got a quick question. These amendment schedules that you have for the MPOTC amendments, are they going to be done concurrently with the NCDOT STIP amendments? Or are we doing those, or each party is responsible for following through with the NCDOT STIP amendments?
So STIP amendment occurs after our MTIP amendment.
Yeah.
That will be after it's approved by a board. It is sent to the STIP unit for processing. And after about 2 months, that's when it shows up on the board accreditation item and handout for informational purposes. And then in the following month, it is returned to the board for approval. Because that's what that last column is, starting March 2026. Is when it
Okay,
goes
so
into.
is there any way is there any way that these can be done concurrently, like MPO and this NCDOT doing them together, or I mean, it seems they're still separate, two separate processes?
It has been done for emergency situations, but currently we're post linear.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And that's the department's policy, Nish. It's not our process.
I understood, thank you.
Yeah, times that we do a parallel, it's just both of us commenting with each other for emergency situations, like the Durham Marshall Rail Trail. Any other comments on the NTIP or air quality report? Hearing none, the action is just to recommend that the board approve the document.
Looking for a motion.
You
I'll move.
Move by Paul. Move for a second.
Second, Matt.
Moved by Matt.
Hey, change.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, passed unanimously. On to info item, the process update. Take it away.
So for those of you that attended the subcommittee meeting last week, this looked very familiar. But there are some updates made based on feedback received during that meeting. So going to the public comment period, thank you everyone for the support, likes and shares and such, and spreading this on social media. And the agenda as well as right here is a link just for a more interactive report to be able to see if there are people placed comments on which areas. And just a brief overview on the feedback we received. There is much support for roundabouts and multimodal accommodations in general. There's also several references to our Vision Zero plan. So safety was kind of large recurring topic throughout the comments. Going into the project list, when developing these, we did not have the preliminary data from Spot Online or funding availability, although it was released last week. The figures are meager as we suspected, and it's pretty minimal impact on our selection. Now going to the list, I'm just going to go over the changes that occurred this last meeting. So from here, we added on the downtown loop two-way conversion of the downtown loop in City of Durham. We also removed the 5501 Chapel Hill Road along 5501 that we just talked about. That's actually a carryover project, and so it's not needed to be submitted on the list. We also added the project along Owen Road Road, with one that is currently being workshopped by stakeholders, but it's the one we seek to add to our selection. And then not new, but lastly was the Garrett Road and Pickett Road roundabout. And then there were several new submissions that were either rescinded or deemed ineligible to run. Going on to the bike and ped projects, some of the ones added here, Fifth Avenue from Main Street to Whole Avenue, as well as the University Drive project, constructing side path from University of Garrett Road. Nothing has changed here. The town of Harbor elected to switch the submissions previously to Seal Spring Road was selected, but that's been switched for the Harbor Bowden Creek Greenway Phase 2. And then the University Drive along Cornwallis Road was also added to the selection. And then also the Door Box Road Trail has been added to our selection for consideration. And then one final change on this list is just the I-85 pedestrian bridge within the town of Hillsborough. And aside from these, there are the new submissions that were there before. And just a reminder, we will need information on these new submissions in order to submit the project by August 22nd. And so I know we have several chats scheduled offline individually with municipalities just to order projects that they want to submit, as well as what's on the list as well. And so during those, once we sort out projects we will be moving forward with, it's like a request to have the data in place.
And that deadline is?
August 22nd.
Thank you. If we don't have it by then, we won't be submitting it.
Right. Then the transit and rail list, there were no changes from the last meeting. So all the ERT projects are in here still, as well as the new ones being suggested. And then with the rail extent, no change from this list. The express design update. This is one for P9, but there are actions that we will need to take within P8. So the purpose of this is just to have a better handle on the cost estimates of these projects, just because they're all very much in conceptual phase. And so having better cost estimates help prevent just further changes in the step in the future. So the requirement is for just the highway mode of spot. Projects will require an express design level cost estimate or greater. They say or greater. Also, verification memo CBMs are the alternative. The built-in tool within Spot Online will no longer suffice for generating that cost estimate. And just as a feature of this, a single express design can be used for multiple submittals. So we want to select a corridor, as long as we delegate which parts we want to get out of it, it could be multiple included within there. Going into how they'll be allocated within our submittals. So for the highway mode, of course, the first will begin with the express design allocation. Well, we have 9 submissions that we can use for this. And so we won't need to use those submissions on projects that already have cost verification memos or that already belong to express design, unless it's a design that we seek to revamp or redo with a different alternative. After that, there are the projects that are exempt from the design requirement and the slides. And aside from that, all MPOs and divisions are being allowed one project to be submitted without the express design, one highway project. It doesn't have to conform to the guidelines. And then with the remaining submittal slots, will be used for either self-funded express designs or just multiple submittals that came about a single express design. So here are the exceptions and guidelines that I mentioned of when express design would be required for a highway project. So here are the SITs for those projects, but in addition to those, the cost of the project must be less than 10 million, which for this area, there isn't much to work with. So it's kind of with problems with that. So I mentioned that we will be allowed to submit one project that will not need express design. This is not an additional submittal slot, it's just an exception that's being allowed. We will need to declare what that project is ahead of time to the spot office. So this whole process will be facilitated by the feasibility studies unit. And so they're who will be submitting our request to and will be facilitating all the express designs. With this being a big change, so for P9 only, they have added additional flexibility with the exceptions. With the difference between the number of express design submittal slots, we have 9, and our regular submittal slots are 17. Whatever we don't fill out for hybrid projects, we'll be allowed to submit from more than one exception to that rule. This just lists out all the allocations throughout the state for both MPOs, RPOs, and divisions. And so we are down here. You can see we have 9 submittal slots for express designs. And then the divisions in the area are up there on the right. All divisions all have 6 each aligned. So as I mentioned, the feasibility studies unit will be the ones facilitating this process. We will submit project to them using their smart sheet, and that will also be how we can request additional or updated cost verification memos for projects that have them already. The action during P8 that I mentioned, so we will be submitting. We intend to go through express design in chunks. The first third of those, so 3 projects for us to select, will be due at the end of November. And then the second set will be due at the end of May, and then finally at the end of September 2026. We will need to have the full list of express designs. Here's just calendar, just illustrating those 3 checkpoints that I mentioned during this period. And the first one coming up at the end of November. So although the feasibility studies unit is facilitating this, we do not have to be exclusively. We can fund our own express designs, and they have shared guidance and process documents just to go about doing that and making sure we are following their rules as well. Any questions on submittal list or yes?
Yeah, the spot subcommittee meeting, there was discussion about the TPO developing a policy to pick the first 3 projects to be selected for express design. Has there been any more consideration as to how that's gonna happen and when it's gonna be decided? Because November, we know.
Yeah, we do have a couple of ideas as well. We're also coordinating with other MPOs, our agencies, to see what everyone else is doing, just so we can be better informed, but also have more solid approach. Right now, the top method is just to use the highest scoring projects from this round with our priorities. Once we filter out what we had express design, and this has CDM already.
Okay, they're gonna top down approach pretty much.
For now, leading method.
That's all I have.
Any other questions?
So this will come back in September.
Yes, this is for initial purposes, and so we'll be approving this list in September. Until then, I know we have a couple of individual meetings scheduled, but if you have additional concerns, please reach out to us so we can get a meeting scheduled.
Then the last item, also film on call for project schedule announcement. Hang tight.
309.
But it's that time of year then, just to have a refresher on our federal fund policy, I'll just go through a few key points. So the federal funding policy sets up the regional request funding, RFF. which distributes out these funds. One difference you'll see here from last time is CRP, the carbon reduction program is not included here. So those funds are still expected to end by 2026, and so we don't anticipate receiving any additional funds to program for those. The eligible project for this, as you'll all know, we do not advocate for TV roadway projects, but almost everything else, so public transit projects and bike and ped projects are the majority for this. But there are also some other programs such as TDM, ITS, and for any major safety issue. For those submissions, here are just all the eligible phases. Most of all the phases of the project: design, right of way, and construction, along with utilities, CEI, and then also for the other projects, transit capital for purchases, and also our TDM program. So for new project submittals, just a reminder, they do have the priority for our existing funds, just to encourage project completion. The only reason they would need to complete as a new project would be if there was a substantial change to the scope. And so here are some examples of substantial changes to the scope. So changing the design standards, the funding source, whether it's going from federal to state, adding a new phase, or also just a change in project cost, but percent in the first project. Just a reminder, the cost estimates should not be more than a year old, and that we do require a 5% annual inflation cost built in. So it's kind of cut off a bit, but this does list out our contingencies. If a project not yet completed any phases, then it will be required to include the full 45% contingency there. If either design or right of way has been completed, then it goes down to 30%. Now for what's coming up here is just a schedule that we have set out. So of course, you guys know the schedule right now, in September, all we should kick off. And throughout the rest of the year, we'll be going into this training and also coordination with you guys on ideas you guys have and what you anticipate submitting. And so be on the lookout for presentation from us as we individually set up those meetings.
And hold the date, looks like for November 16th for training.
Yes.
Training.
So pre-submittal meeting and also training by Sheila and Raymond, just for navigating EBS. EBS did receive a large overhaul. It's now the inventory system, I believe. So just going through that, as well as best practices when it comes to budgets and scheduling. And so January of next year is the period that we'll be accepting submissions, and the months following that will be scoring and additional reviews from NCDOT. And then in April is when we should release those recommendations. June is when we anticipate our board to approve the projects. And then from there, it goes into the STIP schedule to get incorporated into STIP. And that is anticipated around March to April of the following year, just for it to be fully incorporated into STIP. So there has been slight update from this. I know here we have the years being 2026 to 2028, but we will actually only be programming for 2027 and 2028, just with the time it takes for lists to be approved and for the list to go through STIP inclusion. It will unfortunately be too late to program for FY26 by the time we get to that point. So for FY27, we are setting requests for existing projects. For FY28, we'll be accepting existing request for additional funds, and also for new projects as well. So as a reminder, existing projects have the priority. New projects are allocated after those have been made whole, and all projects will go through scoring criteria. So for requests for additional funds, some of the criteria are just change in budget and project progress. And then for new project requests, we have our criteria just for safety, multimodal accommodations and emissions, is folks, to name a few. And one thing to make everyone aware of is just our project caps. So there's been a couple of changes since our last one for Orange County, Coach Triangle, and Durham. The cap has increased to 15 projects. Don't go too crazy. Well, otherwise, the caps have stayed the same, and the current active projects, this list was currently active, and so you'll only be able to submit new projects. Just put a difference between that and the project cap. Now, another kind of elephant in the room is just the money that we'll have to program. Right now, those are still being finalized with some discrepancies we have in the STIP unit, but for a general ballpark, we have around 20 million to program. It's a good bit similar to like last time. You see a number of funds back from some projects that originated from spot cycle. We had a lot of DA funds on those projects, and so the divisions thankfully chopped off those funds on their own, and so we got to get it back. So, like I mentioned, there'll be the training happening on November, and aside from that, we'll be meeting with all members individually just to go over any ideas you have, as well as what you guys need to say. Any questions on the overall schedule? You're back to the schedule. Yeah. 16th is Sunday. That's probably a type of which will be up to 12.
We won't make you comment Sunday.
Not peak.
It is off peak.
Really wants it.
If you really want a project.
You get an extra project if you come on.
With the caps and active projects, you said, so you're at your cap, you can't submit any more projects, is that?
For new projects, but you can still submit for additional funding for existing projects.
So no new projects.
But y'all are not your cap.
Just asking.
Yeah.
Don't mind, you want to get a brief update about.
Yeah. Anyone have any questions on? So an update we've been waiting for quite a while. Our prioritization process pilot program is a grant that we applied to last year, and we were awarded the grant last December, but then the new administration happened, causing many delays. But we were just contacted recently by FHWA to be able to proceed with the grant agreement. So it's been a long time coming, but just as a reminder, with this grant, we look to do two things. One is to fund a project delivery study for our members, and two, to build a online application that can host the TIP as well as this other facets of common projects. So you'll be proceeding with the grant agreement soon. And more tuned. Stay tuned, find out. All right, that's all. Thank you.
So with that, we're done with all of our official agenda items and other reports. So reports from TPO staff.
I don't have too much to add to the report from Doug, other than please complete the member survey. There was a QR code at the beginning. There's one actually on the little sign outside. It means a lot to us to get your feedback so that we can continue to improve to support you all. And the second, the very last thing is we're currently working on our network analyst, getting ready for the next MTP already. So the deadline for reviewing that and making changes is the end of this month. I know some of you have already been in there and completed some reviews, but if you haven't, please complete those reviews ASAP. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, come find me afterwards. Thanks.
No report from PC Chair today. NCDOT report, Division 5.
Just one comment. We are in the midst of our week-long drop-in session at the division to support P8 project submittal process, which is underway. So if anybody has a desire to come by and talk about prioritization or projects in particular, we have someone at the division for this week.
Is that it?
Yep.
Thanks. Division 7.
Yeah, same for us, our drop-in session is next week. Drop by the division office in Greensboro. Nothing else additional to report.
Thanks. Division 8. Still on.
Good afternoon, this is Brian, and this is our drop-in week at our Carthage office. That's for P8. Thank you.
Thanks. TPD.
No updates.
Traffic operations
Yeah, no updates.
and IMD. Yes, nobody's on from IMD. Next meeting is Tuesday, September 9th. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So the next meeting is we're going to be in the other conference room where we have board meetings typically.
This room is not available.
Okay. Thanks. Looking for a motion to adjourn still.
So
Second. And that. Adjourned.
Thank you for doing that with analyst. Sorry, you put it- Sorry, you put it
What you
there.
were responding to.
Yeah. Oh, just.
I did, and then I gave up. Reached out to them.